doing some pruning on our tomatoes in the high tunnel. I am trimming off flowers and suckers. So if you come in, I will show you what I'm talking about, what we're getting rid of. This variety of tomato is a indeterminate variety, and we are going to be cutting off the suckers. So this is a sucker right here, and what you can do is come along and cut it, but because these leaves are lower and they're not really doing anything for the plant right now, they're a little bit iffy looking, I'm just going to take the whole thing off. And I'm going to do that up along the whole stalk. This is another sucker, but again, I'm just going to take the leaf off too with it, like that. You want to continue to take the suckers off as indeterminate varieties grow, and that's because those suckers turn into a whole nother tomato plant itself. We have in the past trained our tomatoes to have multiple stalks, but because of room, I'm just going to have them to 1 liter inside here. That way they can put all their energy into the tomatoes that are coming off of that vine. And the reason I am getting rid of the flowers is because they're just still too small to be flowering. So we'll wait until they've put on a lot more growth before we start to let them keep those flowers. I have a variety of tomato at the end, our paste tomato, that is a determinate variety. So that one is more bush-like. It doesn't keep growing and sending off suckers like that. So that one we probably will not prune. Those ones you kind of want to leave them like that so you will get the most amount of tomatoes off of that plant. We have found that pruning your tomatoes will result in bigger, healthier tomatoes. If you find that your tomatoes aren't ripening on time, or if you're not getting the really big heirloom ones that you're growing, if it's not turning out the right way, sometimes that is just because pruning is what you need to send the energy out to those tomatoes rather than into all the suckers. This is a really good example, this plant right here. So this is our main stalk, and you can see this V, this branching. This is a sucker. So if I don't prune this off now, this plant will now have 2 liters. So I don't really want it to have 2 liters. Again, I'm going to prune it off. And this is our growing point right in there. And I did just prune off a fruiting leaf, or like a fruiting vine. And that's what they look like over here on this plant. So they look quite a bit different. And I am going to break that off because it's just too early for these plants to be flowering. I want them to keep growing. So I'm going to keep chugging along and get rid of some of these bottom leaves too that aren't looking very good. And while I do this, inside Eric is going to be putting some pit fill along the edge. Some of that has sunk down with the rain, so we want to go ahead and get that built back up so we keep this greenhouse nice and hot.
So some of the dirt that we put in around the edge of the greenhouse has started to settle, and we're getting some gaps around the greenhouse. So we went and picked up another load of gravel, or pit run, and I'm going to start wheelbarrowing it in so we can fill in all those gaps, because the greenhouse is losing a lot of its heat through those. All right, I got the greenhouse all sealed up, and as you can see behind me, we have a lot of extra pit run, which is good because we're going to use some of that to fill in some gaps around the fencing that's around the garden.
So next I am starting on planting some of our cucumbers over here. They don't really like to be transplanted, so I'm starting to put them out, or I'm going to put them out early rather than later. We have a slicing cucumber and lemon cucumber, and then I've got a pickling cucumber going a little bit further down there. So just right now I'm going to be doing our slicing cucumbers. Cucumbers' roots are delicious. They actually smell like a really perfumey cucumber, almost like a melon, which I believe they are actually in the same family as melons. Okay, I'm finished with the cucumbers. I did go ahead and put some of the pickling cucumbers in. I decided to group the slicing cucumbers together instead of pulling them apart. I didn't want to mess with their roots too much, so they'll be fine grouped together like that. It's not ideal, but I'd rather chance that than messing with the roots too much. I'm going to move on to some of the squash and zucchini we have ready to go into the ground. So I've got some pumpkin, acorn squash, and delicata squash here in this tray, peas, and zucchini and comfrey, which I am growing for the first time this year, pretty excited for. And the delicata squash are kind of like a bush type, so they won't get that big. In fact, I don't even know if they'll trellis, so I'm going to go ahead and clump those over to the left side over here and just keep those away from the rest, make it easier to harvest. Next, we are putting in our zucchini, and we saved these grow bags from Oregon, and this is what we're going to use them for. I think it'll be perfect because zucchini, I'm not very confident that I can trellis it. It just tends to like sprawl out everywhere. So I'm going to put it in the back of the greenhouse. We don't need that many plants. I mean, I feel like just a few will give you enough zucchini for the full season. So we may do anywhere from like 6 to 9. So I have two different varieties of squash. I have a gray griller is what it's called, and then a yellow neck. We're not growing one of those traditional dark ones. I kind of like these. If you pick them when they're young and they're smaller, the skin's really delicate and you can even eat them raw. So before we water in here, I'm going to get our beans planted. And we're just going to be direct sowing those. It is warm enough now. I use this little temperature gauge to check the soil, and we were about 72 to 76, which is good because it's a pretty overcast day. So that's nice that the soil's that warm on a day where it's not even that sunny out. So we're growing green beans, and I have some yellow. I think I have a purple one. And we have Vortex, which is an awesome green bean variety. If you haven't grown it, I would recommend it. They get like ridiculously long, like 12 inches long. And they look like little skinny long fingers. It's a fun variety to grow. We're also going to try growing dry beans this time. That's something we haven't grown before. And I did try to pick appropriate ones for this climate, so we should be able to harvest them in time and have some beans over the winter. I am putting some inoculant in a little bit of water. I'm going to make a little bit of a paste. If you inoculate your green beans and peas ahead of time, you will get better results. We've just always done it, so I'm going to do it since I have it. So I went ahead and mixed them all up. I don't care how they grow, as long as they grow. This is a gorgeous cattle bean. We're growing cattle beans, fava beans, and a cranberry bean. So pretty. It looks like a cow. One thing I'm working on this year is succession planting. So that's where you plant stuff not all at once, but you plant it over a period of a few weeks so you have a continuous supply of food. We tend to put our plants way too close, and we also tend to have everything ready all at once. We're trying to space that out a little bit more, therefore we can enjoy, a longer harvest period. So these are just peas that I am planting. I started them a few weeks after the other peas. Now I'm working on getting some mustards and baby bok choy planted. We've already done some lettuce and arugula, but we have a few more Asian greens to plant in this bed. Okay, I just finished planting some bunching onions, so we now need to water the whole garden and the greenhouse. So right now we have our generator going to get water for the garden up from the well. We haven't really had to water very much because it's been raining for a few days on and off, and we also make sure to put some water aside in containers just so we don't have to turn the generator on all the time when we need just a little bit of water. So far everything is doing really well. We're at about 19 hours of sunlight, so I think the plants are enjoying the sun, and we've been maintaining temperatures probably 40s at night and 50 to 60 during the day. So it's a little bit cooler, but hopefully things warm up soon. Okay, today I am heading into the high tunnel, and it's pretty hot in here, I bet. It's probably 80 to 90. We're gonna turn on a fan or two and open up a window. It's not hot enough yet to have both the window, the door, and both fans on, but we are gonna have a setup that brings fresh air in from the bottom and blows that hot air out of the back of the high tunnel. So we're just under 90 degrees in here, and I'm probably okay with it being like 80s, but 90s a little bit warm. I'm gonna open this window. So that should do the trick. We are at the point now where we're gonna have one fan probably running continuously in here. Maybe we'll turn it off at night, but I want the plants to have good ventilation. And later in the season on hot days, we can have both fans going and both sides open, as well as shade cloth on top. We did look into solar fans. Right now we're running these fans off of our solar system. The solar fans weren't as powerful as we were hoping they'd be, so we did opt to just go with these regular box fans. So today we are going to go out and check on the bees, and I wanted to take you along and show you some of the stuff that we are finding in there.
How you feeling about not having your bee suit on?
Good, I'm gonna try it once. These bees are pretty friendly. I think, you know, you can still get stung, and I really don't want to get stung on my face or anything. I want to try it without the bee suit just because I just feel like I don't really need it. So we'll find out if I need it or not. So we're doing a hive check today. We've got 3 hives. If you remember, or if you've seen the previous video, this hive right here actually started off pretty weak because they were the ones with the package that the feeder was upside down. So the queen survived, but the supplier gave us another batch of bees to add to it. It is actually our largest beehive, so they're really going strong. And I think the smallest one is probably that last one on the left. They are all done with their sugar water. I think they still have some pollen in there that they're chewing away at, but we're gonna get in there and see what's going on. So this is our smallest beehive. They are only covering maybe like 5-6 frames. It's a little bit small compared to the others, but every time I come in here there's the queen and she looks fine and they're doing their business, so it's just a little bit of a smaller colony. So I'm gonna take one frame out and I'm gonna push these over. Very cool. So this is the beeswax foundation that we started with, and you can see they're starting to build up that comb. That's really all that's going on here. I've found with the bees, the more gentle you are, that seems to be the golden trick, especially with putting things back and moving. They kind of take a while to get out of the way to not squish them. The reason we're pulling them out and leaving space in between is in case the queen's in there, we don't want to roll her. So we've got comb built up. There's the yellow is their pollen. We've got some capped brood. You can see those right where the bees are. That is capped brood. So that means that they've covered up their babies. They're going to be hatching out soon. Because they're having to draw their own comb on the frames that don't have any foundation, I do expect them to take a little bit longer to build up. Okay, so we pulled out the second to last frame over here. There are 5 frames in here that have a foundation, and there are 5 frames that don't have anything. So these guys have already drawn out their own comb, and we got lucky. They're building it completely straight and within the boundaries of what they should be or what we want them to be for us. I didn't have any problem taking that out, so we got really lucky with that. The idea was to alternate these frames with the ones that have foundation once they got established, but I haven't done that. And since this is straight, I will most likely put it back right where I got it, because what they do is they follow their pattern for the next one. So if this one's straight and perfect, they will continue that pattern to the next one. So I don't really have to worry about them getting kind of wild over there. So there's some larvae in here, these little white grub looking things. If you could see those, what that is their egg has now hatched and it is yet to be capped. So that is going to be capped, and then those will emerge into bees. So we're going to get that put back in there. It's looking good. So what we're doing is just getting rid of a little comb that I don't really want them to have. That was kind of on the edge here. Sure, they're going to be not very happy what's going on here, but so there was just a little comb right here and right there that was touching that I did not want there. So the most important thing that I'm doing here is putting their frames back really tightly together. They are really sensitive to like space. That may not seem very big of a difference to us, but it's a huge difference to them. So you want to put their frames in the middle and you want them tight. So I usually do that at the end. If I leave too much space, what happens is they can build too big of a comb, and then it'll make it not very pleasant to get out. So that hive check went pretty well, especially considering they are the smallest hive that I know of. I didn't find the queen, but because there's eggs and larvae and just the, the stages of that, I'm not worried that she's not in there. We'll probably just check back on this hive in maybe a week or a few days just to make sure that they're still going straight with that comb. So this is hive number 2. This hive looks about the same size. So this hive, we already noticed they're building more on the first 5 frames rather than starting on the outside frames. Okay, we found larvae and eggs, so that's good. We know that there's at least been a queen in the last 3 days, I believe. And they just seem to be a little, I don't know if I want to say behind, but they may not be as advanced as this one next to them. Okay, we are going to retreat on this one because they're a little bit aggravated. Again, I'm not worried that the queen's not in there. They seem to be on track. So this is the mother load. This is the big hive. You can see them dancing. Now they're not doing that just for fun. There's a purpose to that. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this hive closed up. So we had to relocate over here closer to the house. There was lots of wind and we want you guys to be able to hear us. But all in all, the hive check went well. All 3 look good. They're at different stages, but they all have eggs and larvae, so I'm assuming there's queens in there that are doing okay. And I just know that I think I fed them too much sugar syrup, and that's probably why they had some extra in there and had it already capped. I don't know what I can do about that. I'll have to read about it. Or if you know or have advice, please let me know. We know quite a bit about bees and we've read a lot, but the experience is quite a bit different, so I'm just kind of learning as we go and need to read up for the next step. So what I'm going to be doing is paying attention for when I need to add their next hive body. The honey doesn't come in, I think, until July, so I don't believe I need to add their supers for that until that time. But we appreciate you guys following along, and again, if you have any suggestions or recommendations, let us know in the comments, and we will keep you posted as always on the bees and how they're doing. Eric, they bit me.
Did they actually bite you?
No, I don't think so.
There's one right on your chest.
I know, I feel them. No, no one bit me.
Nice necklace.
My bee necklace. I think they were a little displeased when I blew on them that time. Maybe stay away for that.